Prasida Bhagavan Vilokayamanak Jadam Jadavimam Twadeka Sharanam Vidhuta Kalpana Jala Gambhirodara Murtaye Namasamanta Bhadraya Samanta Spuranatvishe. Perhaps we can start by saying 3 times the refuge and Bodhicitta, and in this case you have it in this text, this one. It would be on page 4. So the first time I can say and you repeat, and then the second and third time we try together. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavadhi bodhim sharanam prayami danadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. Now we try together. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavadhi bodhim sharanam prayami danadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavadhi bodhim sharanam prayami danadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. And we can also say 3 times the 4 immeasurables together. Sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena naviyujyeran sattva hitam labheran sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena naviyujyeran sattva hitam labheran sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena naviyujyeran sattva hitam labheran. Thank you for coming. Again, thanks to Venerable Wewu for making this possible, as well as to Kenze Foundation, who has partially sponsored this. Today we are starting to read a very, very important text by Arya Shantideva. And I think probably many of you have already heard about this text. The Bodhicharyavatara is one of the most important texts in the whole of the Mahayana tradition. And it contains all the main aspects of the Mahayana path in a very powerful expression. So it's a text which many people find very inspiring, and at the same time it's written by an extremely knowledgeable, realized master, Acharya or Arya Shantideva. And so before we actually start reading the text, I thought I could tell you something about the author. Who wrote this text? What kind of great master wrote this text? There are different accounts of the life story of Shantideva. So there's an account by Taranatha, the great Tibetan historian, and there's an account which appears in a commentary to the Bodhicharyavatara preserved in Tibetan. And this account is also similar to a Sanskrit text called The Life of Shantideva. Mostly I'm going to look at this Sanskrit text, and even if we don't go through the whole life story in great detail, at least I can tell you some points, some interesting points about the life of the Shantideva. So according to most accounts, he was born as a crown prince. So Shantideva was supposed to become a king. And his mother was an emanation of Vajrayogini, of the female Buddha Vajrayogini. So it so happened that at the time of the Abhisheka, the anointment as crown prince, you know, Abhisheka means that some water is being sprinkled on one's head. So when Shantideva went for that, he felt that this water was too hot. And then his mother told him, if you think that's hot, wait until you go to hell. And she told him, it's very unlikely that you're going to go to heaven if you become king. So renounce the kingdom and go and meet some Buddhist master. So he went away very far, and then he was in a situation where he was very hungry, and he met a girl who fed him, and he asked her, where do you come from? And she said, I come from such and such a teacher. And as soon as he heard the name of this teacher, Shantideva was very, very moved just by hearing the name. So he decided that he wanted to go and meet this teacher. He did so, and he learned certain practices of Manjushri. So Shantideva has a very strong connection to Manjushri. Manjushri is the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Here you have an image of Manjushri, Arya Manjushri. Shantideva was a realized master, and he went and started working for a king as a minister. And in that kingdom, he established a lot of Buddhist learning. And the ministers started being jealous of him. So they started telling the king that he was a fake. He was actually a fake. And they pointed out that he was doing something a bit strange, because he had a very strong devotion to Manjushri. So you can see that Manjushri has a sword. That is the sword of wisdom. And as a sign of devotion for Manjushri, Shantideva used to go around with a sword. But it was a wooden sword. And so all the ministers told the king, look, he's a fake. Even his sword is not real, he has a wooden sword. And so the king said, okay, I want to see that sword. And he told Shantideva, please show me that sword. Shantideva told him, Shantideva was a Siddha, so he was somebody who had some kind of exceptional accomplishment. He was not an ordinary person already. So he told the king, it's better if I don't take the sword out. You might be harmed. And then the king became even more suspicious. How is that possible? He said, doesn't matter if I'm going to be harmed. Show me that sword. So Shantideva told him, okay, close one of your eyes and I will take the sword out. The king closed one of his eyes, he took the sword a little bit out, and the splendor from that sword just destroyed the other eye of the king. And then the king was convinced, oh, okay, this is not an ordinary person. It's not true that he is a fake. And then Shantideva told him to protect the doctrine, and he left. And he went to Nalanda, where he took ordination. So Shantideva is a Nalanda master. But Shantideva did not have an ordinary behavior. So he was known as Bhusuku. Bhusuku means Bhukta, it means to eat, Supta, it means to sleep, and Kutimgata, which means he went to the bathroom. He did only 3 things. So everyone thought that actually this person doesn't know anything. He's just eating too much here in Nalanda monastery. He doesn't do anything. But actually, Shantideva was a very accomplished master, so he was always meditating. Even when he slept, he knew how to meditate. So one time, they decided that they should humiliate him. The other monks decided that we should humiliate Shantideva, this Bhusuku. And they used to have a special festival which commemorates the miracles of the Buddha. And during that special festival, people would actually have to say more than a dharma talk. Like a learned monk would have to give a very high speech in front of everyone. So they thought, let's humiliate him. We say, why don't you come and give a speech for this? They said, oh, no, I don't know anything. Then they insisted. We brought him there. And Shantideva, according to some, they have put a very high seat, but he went there miraculously, and everyone was shocked. And then he asked, according to some, he asked, do you want something already composed, or do you want to hear something new? And they said something new. According to others, according to this version, he said, do you want to hear something which is from the seers, or do you want to hear what is really from the seers? And what he meant is this. There's a tradition that grammar comes from the sages. But he said, the prajna paramita, the perfection of wisdom, comes from the genuine sage. So which one do you want to hear? And they said, we want to hear the second. And so he just started reciting the Bodhicitta. And then, when we got to the point of the 9th chapter, in the 9th chapter there's a famous verse, Yadana bhavo na bhavo matis samtishtate puraha tadanyagatya bhavena niralamba prashamyati. So, when in front of the mind neither existence nor non-existence remains, then since it has no other way to go, it has no support, no point of reference, and it becomes pacified. This is a key verse of Shantideva's treatise. When he said that, Manjushri appeared in person, and they disappeared together in the sky. And then later they found his other works too in his kuti. And according to some, later he went in retreat and he performed some other miraculous activities. So this is the author of the Bodhicharyavatara. I will consult a commentary. There's a very beautiful and very rich commentary by a Vikramashila master called Prajnakaramati. This master was the master of the southern gate. So in these ancient universities, they used to have masters, panditas, at each gate, who would take the challenge when somebody wanted to debate. So if a non-Buddhist wanted to come to debate, there would be somebody to guard one gate, another gate, another gate. So Prajnaparamati was the master of the southern gate at a time when Vikramashila was at its height. Vikramashila hosted masters at that time like Ratnakara Shanti, like Jnana Shri Mitra. Some of these were the teachers of Atisha, Dipankara Shri Jnana. And so this master also, it is said, could see Manjushri in person and was undefeatable. So again, a very great master is the author of this commentary. And since we are reading the Bodhicharyavatara here, I would also like to mention another master connected to the Bodhicharyavatara very closely, which is Dharmakirti Shri. Dharmakirti Shri is also known as Serlimpa in Tibetan. And Serling, Suvarnadvipa, nobody knows exactly where it was. According to some, it's some part of Myanmar. According to some, it's some part of Indonesian or Malaysian Borneo. According to some, it's peninsular Malaysia. So this great master actually was one of the main teachers of Atisha, of Dipankara Shri Jnana, and he wrote texts on the Bodhicharyavatara. Because the Bodhicharyavatara is one of the main bases of what in the Tibetan tradition they also call Lojong, the mind training or mind changing teachings. So this text is one of the main bases. And it's also closely connected to the teachings of the Prajnaparamita. And Dharmakirti Shri was an expert in the Prajnaparamita. In fact, luckily, now we found one of his Sanskrit texts. So Dharmakirti Shri was even invited to go and teach in India. I think in Vikramashila, if I remember correctly. So sometimes we think of the Sanskrit text and the Sanskrit tradition as being the language of India, but it's not, in a way, it's not correct. This was an international language which Buddhists cultivated everywhere, included in this part of the world. And as I mentioned on another occasion, if we go to the Bujan Valley, we can see Sanskrit writing. Some Mahayana Sutra talking about emptiness, very beautiful. So I think I'm very happy that we can read this text here. I think it's a very auspicious occasion. It would be great if somebody more qualified than myself could teach you this text. That would be better. But nevertheless, I'll try to be as careful as I can reading this text. I will consult the commentary, and I hope I do not make too many mistakes. I might make some mistakes. So this gives us an idea of the great masters associated with this text. And of course, in the Tibetan tradition, many masters put very great emphasis on this text. So a very famous teacher who had a strong connection to this text was Patrul Rinpoche. And if I am correct, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's lineage of teachings on the Bodhicharyavatara also is connected to him through Kunu Lama, if I am correct. And I have learned parts of the Bodhicharyavatara with Professor Ramshankar Tripathi, who's a student of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And my teacher, Venerable Tsultring Gyaltsen, the author also of the Three Principal Paths, very often quotes when explaining a crucial point from the Bodhicharyavatara. And I found that whatever my impression might be worth, but I've read these texts, especially some parts, many, many times. And I think not only me, but many people find that we can read it as many times as possible, and it's always very useful. This time we will be reading the first chapter, which is, we can say, a praise of Bodhicitta, or something which shows us the good qualities of Bodhicitta. So it is connected in terms of the three paths to the second of the three paths, mostly. And so it's meant to encourage us to take up the Mahayana path, explaining the main features of Bodhicitta and explaining all its good results. That is the topic of this chapter. So what we will do is that we will chant each verse together. Well, first maybe we repeat, like I say it and you can repeat it. And then I will offer some explanation of each verse. There are different ways to chant the Bodhicharyavatara, of course, like all Sanskrit verses. Actually, a good friend has recorded a very beautiful version, Kashinat Nyopane, and I would encourage you to listen to that style too. It's very beautiful. He has a very nice voice. And it's a slightly different style. I chant it in a different way compared to him, because I was already used to chant it in a different manner, and also maybe his style is a bit more difficult to reproduce. If we're complete beginners, maybe it's a little more difficult. So we chant it in a slightly simpler way. So I think here, if you go to page 2, Om Namo Buddhaya. Sugatan Sasutan Sadharmakayan Pranipatya Adarato Akhilamscha Vandyan Sugatatmaja Samvaravatāram Kathayishyami Yathagamam Samasat Sugatan Sasutan Sadharmakayan Pranipatya Darato Khilamscha Vandyan Sugatatmaja Samvaravatāram Kathayishyami Yathagamam Samasat. Okay, we can try one time together, very slowly. And again, don't worry, sounds good, doesn't sound good, doesn't matter. We just try. Sugatan Sasutan Sadharmakayan Pranipatya Darato Khilamscha Vandyan Sugatatmaja Samvaravatāram Kathayishyami Yathagamam Samasat. So this starts. This is called Mangala Acharana. It's an auspicious beginning. This is what we find at the beginning of most Indian treatises, or even in Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan. Everyone follows this system usually. And it starts with prostrating to the three jewels. The three jewels here are the Buddha, all the Buddhas, so Sugatan is plural, all the Sugatas, which means those who are well gone. And I will explain about this word because the commentary actually tells us something. Why we have this word well gone. Why do we call the Buddha Sugata? Together with their sons, Sutan. Suta means son. Who are the sons of a Buddha? The Bodhisattvas. So this refers to the Bodhisattvas on the Bhumis, which are part of the Sangha jewel from the perspective of the Mahayana. The Bodhisattvas were noble Bodhisattvas. Together with the Dharmakaya. This is the Dharma jewel. What do we mean, the Dharmakayas? This can refer to two things. The Dharma has two aspects, the Dharma of realization and the Dharma of textual transmission. So, when we are referring to the Dharma of realization, the ultimate nature of the realization of the Buddhas is called their Dharmakaya. And when we are talking about the Dharma of textual transmission, Dharmakaya can mean the collection of dharmas, the collection of teachings. So this way, we are prostrating to the three jewels. And also to everyone who is worthy of salutation. So this can mean the teacher and the preceptor, the Acharya and the Upadhyaya, for example, and others. Upadhyaya is the Vinaya preceptor usually, the one who gives the vows. When one takes vows, that is the Upadhyaya. So this part of the Mangalacharana, the auspicious beginning, is the Namaskriya, the salutation. So here we pay respect to the three jewels and to all the others who are worthy of respect. And how does he do it? Adarataha, with reverence, carefully. Then what will he do? Kataishyami, I am going to tell, I am going to explain. Now he tells us the topic. So the next part is an indication of the subject matter. What is he going to talk about? He's going to talk about how to enter. Avatara means how to engage or how to descend in the vows or practices, samvara, of the Bodhisattvas. Sugata Atmaja. Sugata Atmaja means the sons of the Buddhas, the sons of the Sugata, again the Bodhisattva. So how to practice the Bodhisattva path. This is our topic. Then we could ask, well, are you going to invent something? Is it out of your own imagination that you're going to explain this? And the answer is no. Yatha agama, according to the textual transmission. So according to what we find in the sutras, that's exactly how I'm going to explain this. So in this way we know that he's not making up something independently. It's entirely dependent from the teachings of a Buddha. But then we could ask, if it's entirely dependent on the teachings of a Buddha, why don't we just read the sutras? How is it going to be useful for us to have this treatise? We can just read the sutras. And the answer is samasataha, in brief. So the point is that if we want to find all these points of practice in the sutras, we have to read a lot. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of the Bodhisattva Pitakas. All the Prajna Paramita Sutras. They're huge. Some of them are huge. So we may not be able to do that. Not all of us have that much time and inclination to read so extensively. So the special feature of this treatise is that he did that. And he put together all the main points. So in this way, we know the subject matter and we know why it is a reliable treatise and also what is the advantage of studying this treatise. So this is the general idea of this first verse. Now I would like to add some points from the commentary. So, Acharya Prajñakaramati spends some time explaining the word Sugata. His explanation is not new. It's found elsewhere. It's not a new explanation. It's a traditional explanation. It existed for many hundreds of years before him. And this explanation highlights the greatness of a Buddha. So I feel it's a very nice explanation. It highlights that the Buddha is superior compared to all the non-Buddhist teachers. It highlights that the Buddha is superior compared even to all other Buddhists who have some realization. Whether we are thinking of ordinary people, pratyajna, or we are thinking of Aryas. Even the Srotapanna, the stream enterer, the once returners, the non-returners, the Arhats, do not compare to a Buddha. Even the Bodhisattvas on the Bhumis still do not compare to a Buddha. And all of this is embedded in the word Sugata, according to this explanation. And so, the Buddha is well gone in different senses because the particle su can have different meanings. This particle su can be a kind of praise. So when we say well gone, in the sense that he has gone in a way which is praiseworthy. And this distinguishes the Buddha from the non-Buddhist teachers, because they also have their own path, but it's not the middle way. So in that sense, the Buddha is worthy of praise because he has taught the middle way. So this is one meaning. Also, he is praiseworthy because he has destroyed all the obscuration through this middle way. He has realized the selflessness of all the dharmas. He has realized the ultimate emptiness, which is something praiseworthy. And then another meaning of the word su, when we say well gone, is that he's gone for good. That's another meaning. Completely gone. It means that he's completely out of samsara. When we say this, we are distinguishing the Buddha from the stream enterers, the once returners, and the non-returners, and the bodhisattvas. Because all of these also have gone, so they have realization, but they are still within samsara. So in that sense, the Buddha is Sugata. It can also mean that he has completely gone, perfectly gone. And in that case, what it means is that he has completely destroyed also the subtle influences of the kleshas. So this, according to Mahayana, is a special feature which distinguishes the Buddhas from the Arhats. The Buddhas have completely relinquished even the subtle impressions of the kleshas, the vasanas. And therefore, they also have destroyed all the possible slight imperfections, slight lack of skill in teaching the Dharma. So that is one of the really special qualities. So in this way, through the third meaning, the Buddhas are also distinguished from the Arhats. So when we put together all these meanings, we can see that compared to anyone else that we can think of, the Buddhas are absolutely exceptional. So that is the point of this explanation. And therefore, when we hear the word Sugata, and we think of the Buddhas, we automatically obtain prasada, a kind of serene good disposition of the mind, and this also allows us to pay more attention when we hear the Buddhist teachings. It's one way to catch our attention. So now we know that the Bodhicharyavatara is in accordance to the teachings of the Buddha, and we have been reminded by reflecting on the meaning of this one word about the greatness of the Buddha, and therefore we might feel even more inclined to listen and reflect on the Bodhicharyavatara. Okay, so these are the main points of the first verse. Since I think almost everyone was here, but I will repeat then just briefly one of the points about listening to the Dharma. Now we have read the auspicious beginning. You remember the 3 defects of a pot. Now we probably know all of them by heart. Is not be upside down, and be a pure pot, and not have holes. So the point is quite intuitive. We have to pay attention and develop a good motivation, and try to find some way to remember both the words and the meaning as much as we can in the right order. And the intention in this case is the intention of Bodhicitta, and that's why we started by saying the refuge and Bodhicitta prayer 3 times. So this is the overall meaning of the first verse. There is another point that Prajnakaramati makes, which is in a way not crucial, but somebody might ask, well, usually we say Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, because from the Buddha comes the Dharma and from the Dharma comes the Sangha. So there is this order. So what happened here? Here actually we have Buddha, Sangha, Dharma. If you check, Sugatan, Sasutan. So the Sugatas with their sons, with the Dharmakaya. So what happened? So there's 2 answers. Simple answer is, it's a verse. If we put it in prose order, we actually can switch it. So the point is that Sanskrit meter has certain restriction about the number of syllables and how they have to be. So sometimes we have to change the order a little bit to make a beautiful verse. So this is the first answer. He says, this is a simple answer. Holy says, actually offers even a slightly more subtle answer. He says, well, actually, we can also think in this way. The sons of the Buddha, the bodhisattvas on the bhumis, already have the Dharmakaya. So implicitly we have already mentioned that. And since they are in many ways almost like the Buddha, out of respect we just quote them right after him. if we read about the bodhisattvas on the bhumis and their activities, actually they start becoming quite similar to the activities of a Buddha. So in that sense, they are sugata praya. They are somewhat close, almost like Buddhas. Of course, there's still a gap, big gap, but this is the other explanation. If you want a very simple explanation, it's a verse, so we change the order. We shouldn't worry too much about it. Okay, so through this verse, we have accumulated merit because we have paid reverence to the three jewels and others worthy of reverence, and this will help in the completion of this treatise and for us in completing learning it and understanding it well. So this is a habit of learned people in India, that one starts with something which will be dispelling obstacles towards the completion of the treatise, both in terms of composing it and in terms of learning it. So this is what we did with the first verse. Now we know the overall meaning of the first verse, and I think we can recite it once more. So maybe we can try to recite it together slowly. Sugatan sasutan sadharmakayan pranipatya darato khilams chavandyan sugatatmaja samvaravataram kathayishyami yathagamam samasat. So this is our first verse. Now we can read the second verse. And again, the first time you can repeat after me. Nahi kimchid apurvam atra vachyam nacha samgranthana kaushalam mamasti ataeva name parartha cinta swamano vasayitum kratam mayedam. Now we can try it together. Nahi kimchidapurvamatra vachyam nacha sangranthana kaushalam mamasti ataeva name parartha cinta swamano vasayitum kratam mayedam. We try once more. Nahi kimchidapurvamatra vachyam nacha sangranthana kaushalam mamasti ataeva name parartha cinta swamano vasayitum kratam mayedam. So the general meaning is that, well, indeed there is nothing here new to be said. So if somebody asks, okay, fine, you're saying it in brief, but is there anything special here? Should we really engage with your treatise? Give us a better reason. He says, no, actually there's nothing new to be said. So somebody might ask, well then, did you say it in a particularly beautiful way? And he said, well, no. Actually, I'm not very good at composing anything. I said, then why did you do this? And his answer is, I do not have any speculation that I'm going to benefit somebody else. I have made this so that I can influence my own mind. I can impress this on my own mind. The word vasayitum is related to this word vasana, which means a subtle impression. It's like a scent, a perfume. So that I can influence my own mind, I have composed this. And according to the stories, indeed, Shantideva, when he recited it that time, had already the whole thing in his mind. He recited it all by heart. When he went to Nalanda, he just recited it. Well, I would like to say that actually, in my estimate, the composition of a Bodhicharya avatar is extremely beautiful. So, in a way, although of course, if we read it in another language, also we can get a lot from the meaning, but in Sanskrit, in my experience at least of reading Sanskrit, I found there is something quite special about the style of the Bodhicharya avatar, because Shantideva writes in many different registers of Sanskrit. Sometimes his writing becomes very ornate, with long verses, with very striking similes, lots of decoration, and then it resembles a bit court poetry, especially when it describes what we offer to the Buddhas. Sometimes he writes in very simple verses, and throughout the text, everything he writes has a very direct flavor. This is an amazing thing about the Bodhicharya Avatara. All the verses look very personal. They have a very spontaneous flavor. This, at least my experience in reading this text. So this is also something that makes this text quite special. And I think the meaning, the overall meaning of this particular verse is not too difficult. We can understand. And even the commentator does not really expand too much on this. He just explains that indeed this responds to some possible questions. If somebody really insists, why should we read this? Then his point is, more or less, he's saying, up to you. I don't expect really that other people necessarily will benefit, but on my part, I compose it so that I can at least bring this reminder of the Bodhisattva path. Okay, now we know the overall meaning of a verse. Maybe we can recite it once more. Nahi kimchid. Oh, we try together. It's okay. Nahi kimchid apurvamatra vachyam nacha sangrantana kaushalam mamasti ataeva name parartha chinta swamano vasayitum krutam mayedam. Now we can try to recite verse 3. And again, first you can repeat after me. Mamatavad anena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vegaha atha mat samadhatur eva pashyed aparopyenam atopi sarthakoyam. This might be a little more difficult, so let's try again. You can repeat once more before we do together. Mamatavadanena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vegaha athamat samadhatur eva pashyed aparopyenam atopi sarthakoyam. Okay, one more time repeating. Mamata vadanena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vegaha atamat samadhatureva pashyed aparopyenamatopi sarthakoyam. Now we can try together. Mamata vadanena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vegaha atamat samadhatureva pashyed aparopyenamatopi sarthakoyam. Well, one could still ask, this sounds a little strange that we don't usually see that people compose a book for their own sake. It doesn't sound very usual. So could you explain more? Why? How you think this is going to work? That you will benefit from composing a book for yourself. Usually when people compose treatises, it's not for themselves. So the answer is that by this, first of all, the force, vega is like the current of a string, of prasada. And prasada means like a good disposition, an inclination. So my good disposition, my inclination towards bhavayitum, cultivating. The word bhavayitum is connected to also the word bhavana, which sometimes we translate as meditation or cultivation. Kushalam means virtue, what is wholesome. So the force of my own inclination to cultivate what is skillful or wholesome, yati vruddhim, is going to go to increase. So by composing this, first of all, I will become more inclined to cultivate what is wholesome. Then, it might happen that somebody who has my same dhatu, means my same nature, someone who has a similar gotra, someone who is inclined towards the Mahayana teaching in a similar way, matsamadhatu. If somebody like me, with my disposition, were to see this, even due to this, due to the fact that this person sees it, this treatise becomes meaningful, also has a purpose. So the point is, actually composing a text can benefit the person who composes this text because it's a way to become more inclined towards cultivating the good qualities that one is expressing in the text. Furthermore, even though he might not have much expectation that other people really benefit, it might happen that some other person who has a similar mindset, a similar inclination, chances to see this text, this composition, well then that person also could have some benefit. So in that case, also, there is a purpose in composing this text. So in this way, in a humble way, which doesn't at least to me, it doesn't even sound like too formal humbleness. It really, the quality of these verses, to me at least, sound like it's a very heartfelt humbleness. Shantideva is showing the purpose of the text, and usually it is the tradition of the Indian treatises that in the beginning we have to explain what they are about, and we have to explain what's their purpose. Because otherwise, people who are careful and thoughtful will not be convinced that it's worth continuing learning those treatises. We want to know what it is about, and we want to know what is the purpose. So he has more or less indicated this. The ultimate purpose of a treatise, of course, is Buddhahood, is the path, understanding and practicing the path to Buddhahood. Of course, that's the ultimate purpose. So again, I think this verse is not too difficult. It doesn't offer too many complicated ideas. So now we know the general idea, and we can read this verse again. We can try together. Mamata vadanena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vega atamat samadhatureva pashyed aparopyena matopi sarthakoyam. Okay. Then we can read verse 4. Again, first you can repeat. Kshana sampad iyam sudurlabha pratilabdha purushartha sadhani yadinatra vichintyate hitam punarapyesha samagamah kutaha kshana sampadiyam sudurlabha pratilabdha purushartha sadhani yadinatra vichintyate hitam punarapyesha samagamah kutaha. Okay, now we try together. Kshana sampadiyam together. Kshana sampadiyam sudurlabha pratilabdha purushartha sadhani yadinatra vichintyate hitam punarapyesha samagamah kutaha. Now this verse, according to Prajnakarmati, is a kind of introduction to taking up the engagement in the vows or the practices of a bodhisattva. So it's a kind of introductory verse. So this verse says that this perfect moment, the perfection of this occasion, is very hard to obtain. Once it is obtained, it can accomplish human aims. If we don't reflect that this is beneficial, if we don't understand that this is of great benefit, when is it going to happen again that we encounter this? So this is the overall meaning of the verse. So what is it referring to? What do we mean by moment's perfection? Well, he's referring to when we are free from 8 conditions which will prevent us from practicing the Dharma. Being free from that means that we have this special situation which allows us to actually engage in the Buddhist teachings. So this is what he's referring to. Once we obtain this condition, we can accomplish human aims. What are human aims? We can explain them at length, but if you want to explain them very briefly, there's 2 types of human aims: Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa. So that means happiness within samsara and the complete happiness of going beyond samsara. This is what we can accomplish when we have these moments perfection. If, however, we don't take advantage of a situation, we don't realize that this is a moment of benefit, that it is exceptional, then we shouldn't expect that it's going to happen very soon again. The point is, it's very easy to go to the lower realms. It's very difficult to be born in the higher realms. And if when we are in the higher realms and we even have the very special conditions to practice the Dharma, we don't do it, then we completely lost our opportunity. It says it's like going to a treasure island and going back home empty-handed. And just obtaining the human birth, there's many similes which are used to explain how difficult it is. One famous simile is the simile of the turtle. You probably have heard this. If you think of the primordial ocean, the primordial ocean is bigger than the ocean as we normally understand it. So it's a very vast ocean. And it's very deep. And if you imagine that there is a buoy with a hole floating on that ocean, and at the bottom of that ocean there is a turtle. And the size of the buoy, the hole in that buoy, is exactly the neck of the turtle. It's not very big, it's exactly that size. And the turtle has no intention to go through that hole. If the turtle, once every 100 years, comes up to breathe with no intention of going through that hole, you can imagine how often it will happen that this turtle is going to put the neck through that hole. So this is the simile. It is said to obtain a human birth is actually more difficult than that. And so, when we don't obtain a human birth, where can we go? We can go down. Then, there's the cold hells and the hot hells, all the way down to Avicii hell, where there's constant pain. And if we are in that situation, the possibility to be inclined to practice the Dharma is not very high. Also, if we are born as pretas, hungry ghosts, our mouth will be as small as the pin of the tip of a needle. And we have huge bellies. When we try to drink or eat something, it just burns inside. For a long time, we don't get anything to eat or drink, and we're also always looking for that. So then also we don't have much occasion to practice. And if we are born as animals, we also have a problem there, because usually animals do not have sufficient discernment to understand the teachings or to know what to take up and what to reject. And also, although many of the animals we see and we interact with normally might have a slightly comfortable situation, if they're pets, for example, we have to remember that many animals live in constant fear. Many animals, we observe, they're always struggling to find food and to not becoming food. So they are in a much more difficult situation than our pets. And there are many animals which we don't see, like the animals who live in the ocean. Actually, there are a lot of those, and they also don't live in a very comfortable situation always. And also, even if the opposite happens and we have a lot of merit and we end up being born like deities, some classes of deities have such a level of constant pleasure that their mind doesn't turn towards the Dharma. So there are many conditions where we are not able to practice. These conditions sometimes are listed at the 8 non-kshana, non-moments. So if we are born in the hell, if we are born in the Preta realm, the hungry ghost, if we are born among animals, even if we are born as humans, if we are born among complete barbarians who have no connection to the Dharma, if we are born among the long-lived deities, these are deities which also have two pleasant situations, we don't turn towards the Dharma. If we are born in a situation where everyone has got wrong view, then also it's difficult that our mind turns towards the Dharma. If we are born in a place where nobody has heard about the Dharma, and also if we do not have sufficient wisdom, although we are humans. Like some humans do not have enough wisdom to even understand at all. So we have to consider that, first of all, there are many types of birth which are not human, are not suitable for us to practice the Dharma. Furthermore, we have to consider that even when we are born as humans, that in itself is not entirely sufficient. We can't be 100% sure that we have all the conditions to practice the Dharma. So we have to consider all of these, then we will realize that we have a very precious opportunity. And one of the points that is being made here is that how are we going to make sure that this opportunity happens again? And this is by reflecting on its benefits and start practicing the Dharma. This is the idea of this verse. There's also some other texts which are quoted by the commentary. There's a verse which says that in the world it's very difficult to obtain a human state. Also, the arising of a Buddha, the birth of a Buddha, is very difficult. You know, it says it's like the Udumbara flower. Also, it's very difficult to have faith and pravyajya, even going forth. Because that's the other point. Even when we have these conditions, it's not always that we have some kind of trust in the Buddhist teachings. And very difficult is to develop bodhicitta. On top of that, to have the wish to become a Buddha for the sake of bringing peace to all sentient beings is even more difficult. So we have to reflect on this, that now we have these conditions to go towards that. Practice the Dharma and perhaps even develop Bodhicitta. We have some inclination towards that. We should try to seize that opportunity, not let it go, because we don't know when it happens again. Okay, now maybe we can again read the verse. We can read it together. Kshana sampadiyam sudurlabha pratilabdha purushartha sadhani yadinatra vichintyate hitam punarapyesha samagamah kutaha. Okay, now we can try to read the next verse. Ratrau yatha megha ghanandha kare vidyut kshanam darshayati prakasham buddhanubhavena tatha kadachil lokasya punyeshu matih kshanam syat ratrau yatha megha ghanandhakare vidyukshanam darshayati prakasham buddhanubhavena tatha kadachil lokasya punyeshu matih kshanam syat. Now we can try together. Ratrau yatha megha ghanandhakare vidyukshanam darshayati prakasham buddhanubhavena tatha kadachil lokasya punyeshu matih kshanam syat. So this verse says, just like at night, ratrau, which is densely dark, or it's dark with thick clouds, meghaganandhakare, which has very dense darkness. So sometimes it's night, there is no moon, and the sky is very cloudy. It's very, very dark. You can imagine that situation. At night, like rain clouds, dark clouds. So it's really dark. We can't see anything. But then there's a lightning, one moment of lightning. So you can imagine that when there is a big storm, sometimes there's very powerful lightning. And suddenly, with this powerful lightning, we can see everything. So this is the simile. Similarly, thanks to the anubhava, it means the might, the power of the Buddhas, sometimes, for just one moment, the mind of a person is towards merit. So for one brief moment, we think of meritorious things, thanks to the might of a Buddha. So thanks to some connection to the Buddha, through the Dharma, or for some ways in which the Buddha benefits sentient beings, for some brief moment, our mind can turn towards something meritorious. And this again stresses how difficult it is actually to go towards Buddhist practice. Like if we reflect, I think for most people, if we think about what our engagements or usual preoccupations are during the day, we can think of how many of our thoughts are actually connected to something meritorious and to the practice of Buddhism, and how many of our thoughts are completely somewhere else. So it's not always easy to maintain a consistent interest and mindfulness of Buddhist practice. We have to make a lot of effort. And when we are able to do that, it is in the end thanks to the Buddha's might. Why? Because it's thanks to our connection to the Dharma which we have learned. Okay, so this is specifically going towards stressing how difficult, how rare it is to have this interest in developing bodhicitta. He hasn't yet explicitly mentioned bodhicitta, but this is the direction. He's starting to introduce this idea that we should carefully reflect that it's not frequent that our mind is going to go towards developing bodhicitta. Okay, again we can read the verse once together. Ratrau yatha megha ganandhakare vidyukshanam darshayati prakasham buddhanubhavena tatha kadachil lokasya punyeshu matih kshanam syat. The next verse. Tasmat shubham durbalameva nityam balam tu papasya mahat sughoram tajjiyate nyena shubhena kena sambodhicittam yadinama nasyat tasmat shubham durbalameva nityam balam tu papasya mahat sughoram tajjiyate nyena shubhena kena sambodhicittam yadinama nasyat. Now we try together. Tasmat shubham durbalameva nityam balam tu papasya mahat sughoram tajjiyate nyena shubhena kena sambodhicittam yadinama nasyat. Okay, the overall meaning is that therefore, considering all this, shubham, goodness, is something like a virtue, is always weak. On the other hand, the force, balam, of papa, sin, the opposite of virtue, is great, mahat, and it's very terrible, very frightening, terrifying, sughoram. That, meaning that force of papa, of sin, or what is the opposite of virtue, is going to be defeated, jiyate, by whatever goodness, what other goodness. So what goodness, what kind of virtue is going to defeat non-virtue? If it's not going to be bodhicitta, if it's not going to be the good bodhicitta, so here it's connected to the previous example. The non-virtue is similar to a very dark night with many clouds. That's, in that example, that's for non-virtue. And it is very terrifying because it's going to bestow a lot of suffering. Like, for example, being born in the lower realms, including the hells. And also because it's not very easy to defeat that non-virtue. Why? Because once we are in the lower realms, it's very hard to actually produce virtue. So if we end up in the lower realms, we are likely to stay there for a long time. And if we are in the higher realms and we do not take care to produce new virtue, then we are likely to end up in the lower realms. For example, it is said that these long-lived gods, they have the highest amount of the physical pleasure, like their Vedana is always pleasant. It's like a constant pleasant Vedana, so they don't think about the Dharma. But they have also the worst kind of mental pain in the whole of samsara. The reason is this, that they have some clairvoyance. So, when they're about to die, there are some signs. For example, they usually have some garlands, and these garlands start, they're usually always fresh flowers, they're not fresh anymore. And also, they usually don't perspirate. Some things start to happen which indicate to them that they're going to pass away. And because they have got clairvoyance, they can see where they're going to be born. So very often they know that they're going to be born in the lower realms. So that kind of gap between having spent a very long life in this extreme state of overall pleasure and happiness, and knowing that suddenly one is going to fall into a terrible state of pain, they say is the worst mental anguish that one can have within samsara. So actually, even if we are born in, this is an example that even if we are born in a very great state of happiness within samsara, that's ruined by its impermanence. So he's introducing one important point. Bodhicitta is the mind, the placement of the mind, the kind of wish towards Buddhahood for all sentient beings. That is a great amount of merit. So that's a point. He's introducing this point. This is going to be one of the important themes in this chapter. Bodhicitta creates infinite merit. So this is going to be one of the main arguments. Every type of result that we want from Buddhist practice is heavily dependent on merit. And the best way to accumulate merit is to develop bodhicitta. So this is going to be a key point. And how does that work? We should understand how merit works. I think we all have some idea. One of the special features of a Buddhist tradition about merit is that merit depends from intention. So, there's two types of karma, cetana and cetayitva. What does it mean? An intention or something which follows an intention. We have these two types of karma. Mental karma is the first type. So when we have an intention, that's mental karma. The Other type is divided into speech karma and body karma. So when we speak, after we have an intention, that's the karma of speech. When we act with our body, after we have an intention, that's the karma of body. So when something happens without us having an intention, that is not karma. That is the special feature of the Buddhist view of karma. It depends from intention. So the more the intention is beneficial, the more it produces good karma. And if this point is very clear, if we understand this point, then we can understand that Bodhicitta is going to produce infinite merit. It's going to produce very good karma. So, to give you an idea of the importance of karma, it is said in the Abhidharma, karmajam loka vaichitriam. The variety in this world is made by karma. So when we think of how everything is put together, like the shape of things, the characteristics of our environment, there are some causes that we can see easily, and we can study just through our eyes very easily. But actually there are some causes that we cannot see with the eye. These causes have to do with collective karma. So according to the Buddhist teachings, the entire formation of the universe depends from collective karma. And also the way we perceive things depends from collective karma. So for example, the fact that we are in the same room, like we are in the same world sphere, the Sahaloka Dhatu, at the same time, now we are even in the same room, and probably we perceive things in a similar way. We don't know, actually, the extent to which what we see is the same. Like, to some extent, it has to be a little similar because we can coordinate. So it means we have some perception which is somewhat similar. All of this is due to having a similar karma. Especially we all have the karma to give us birth in the human realm. It is said, for example, that like this is water, but it's not really water. It's water for humans. So we cannot see it. Maybe some of you can, I don't know, but usually human beings cannot see that. But according to the Buddhist teachings, it's possible that in this room there are not just human beings. In this room there could be pretas, hungry ghosts. If hungry ghosts sees this, they don't see it as water. They see it as a collection of pus, urine, blood, and excrement. Their karma is not as good as ours. But in this room there could also be deities. If deities are in this room, they see this as amrita. Amrita is like the nectar of long life. It tastes much better than water, it seems. So, even there's no common object. What we perceive, the commonality of our perception, depends on the fact that we have some similarity in our karma. So, if we start thinking of this, and we become convinced of this, we start understanding how important karma is and how important accumulating virtue is. It's going to make a lot of difference. So, these are aspects of reflection on Abhidharma. When we learn the Abhidharma, we know about the workings of karma and the subtleties of karma. And that is also important for our ability to perceive the Buddha. This is another point. Because, for example, the Buddha doesn't appear to all sentient beings in the same way. In the sutras, they give many examples about the Buddha. We say that if we really want to understand what the Buddha is, from his side, we can say that the Buddha is non-arising and non-cessation. And the Buddha arises as the perception of different things in different sentient beings in order to prompt them towards Buddhist practice. So when there is a Buddha, even if we are all in the human realm, we might see very different things. And according to some, if we can make our minds very pure, we might be able to perceive the Buddhas even now. Like maybe we cannot perceive Shakyamuni Buddha in the ordinary form because it is said that there's only one Buddha at one time in one world sphere, but there are other ways. So for example, if you think of a Pure Land tradition, there are some masters who can directly perceive Buddha Amitabha. That's one example. This is thanks to the purity of their perception. And that purity also depends a lot on karma. So the accumulation of merit is very important for us to progress on the Buddhist path. And this is going to be a point very heavily emphasized in this chapter. Okay, now we can repeat this verse. Tasmat chubam durbalameva nityam balam tu papasya mahat sughoram tajjiyate nyena shubhena kena sambodhicittam yadinamannasyat. I think maybe we can do one more verse. You think it's okay? We do one more verse today? Okay. Kalpan analpan pravichintayadbhir drishtam munindrair hitametadeva yatas sukheneva sukham pravruddham utplavayati apramitan janaughan kalpan analpan pravichintayadbhir drishtam munindrair hitametadeva yatas sukheneva sukham pravruddham utplavayati apramitan janaughan. Now we try together. Kalpananalpan pravichintayadbhir drishtam munindrair hitametadeva yatas sukheneva sukham pravruddham utplavayatya pramitan janaughan. So now he points to the authority of the Buddhas again. So the Munindras, the lords of sages, the kings of sages, who are they? The Buddhas. the best of sages are the Buddhas. So the Buddhas, they reflected pravichintayadbihi for many kalpas, so for very long time. A kalpa is an eon, is a very long period of time made of many world cycles. And as you know, a bodhisattva needs 3 asankheya kalpa. There are many types of kalpas. The longest type of kalpa is called uncountable eon. Is not literally uncountable, but it's so large that it's called uncountable. So when somebody practices the bodhisattva path, the people who have the sharpest capacity, they just take 3 uncountable kalpas, like Buddha Shakyamuni. So during this period, they thought for many kalpas and they found that only this was beneficial. This means bodhicitta. So of all the things that they reflected could be of benefit for sentient beings, taking up bodhicitta was what they thought, oh, this is really beneficial. Why is it beneficial? Because thanks to it, it's just happiness increasing and increasing. Is more and more happiness. And what does it do? It rescues unmeasured masses of people. When we develop bodhicitta, and then when we succeed in becoming bodhisattvas on the bhumis, even before we become Buddhas, we are of great benefit to everyone else. Everything in the bodhisattva path brings benefit. Whether we are in a period of the path where we practice engaging with other people, or whether we are in a solitary retreat, all of this is constant benefit. And of course, the more we go on the bhumis, the more we are able to benefit others. And so there is one point, though, and well, here the commentator mentions a verse from a later chapter where it is said, in this way, going from happiness to happiness, which person who has got some sense is going to become depressed. So when we think of a bodhisattva path, we are actually going from happiness to happiness. If we understand how the bodhisattva path works, it's just happiness, more and more happiness for ourselves and others. So once we have obtained this chariot of bodhicitta, it just removes all our exhaustion and gives us more and more happiness. So at that point, somebody could ask, what are you saying? We read the Jataka tales. How can you say it's just happiness and happiness is all sukha? It looks like a lot of dukkha, actually. If you think about what the bodhisattvas do during their path, what do they have to do? Well, if one takes up bodhicitta, we have to be ready in future to give away our eyes, our flesh, our head. If we have a family, if somebody says, give me your children, I want them as my servant. We say, okay, take my children. No second thoughts. It doesn't look like a very pleasant thing to do. So how does that work? But the point is that a beginner bodhisattva is not recommended to give away one's eyes. Why? Because if we give something and then we regret it, we are born as pretas. So it is said when we are actually training in dana, we should be aware of our stinginess. If we are not sure that let's say we go around, we see a beggar. If we are not sure that we are generous enough to give 10 ringgit, we can think, okay, I give 1 ringgit, I'm sure I will not regret this. And this way is no problem. If we train in this way, now the easiest thing is to give away material things. So the beggar example, something we don't care about too much, is a little bit easier. It's more difficult to give away parts of one's own body, of course. But it's a matter of step-by-step training. And the point is that when one becomes an advanced bodhisattva, actually they don't feel pain. When they are in, even if they're cut to pieces, they're okay. They just feel happiness that they're giving. So from the side of an advanced bodhisattva, doing something like that is perfectly okay. There's a famous scene, there's a play called The Happiness of the Nagas by Harshadeva. Harshadeva was a king, and he was the patron of Xuanzang, the great Chinese pilgrim. And he wrote this play about a Vidyadhara crown prince. Vidyadharas are semi-divine beings. And so the story, in brief, is that Garuda, the divine bird, Garuda, used to eat a lot of nagas. There used to be mountains of bones of nagas. Nagas are similar to serpents, something like snakes, but semi-divine. They're also semi-divine beings. And it came to the point where all the Naga race was going to be exterminated. So the Naga kings tried to find a solution. And the solution was this. We come to an agreement that on a regular basis, we send you a Naga. You eat that Naga. This way you don't have to make an effort. You have regular food. But be moderate. Don't just kill us all. So this was the agreement. So that's a famous play. And actually, one time it was the time of a small boy called Shankacura, and he himself was very heroic. Like, he didn't mind to do that at all. It's like, okay, it's my turn, I go. And but his mother was not very happy about it, and his mother would faint and cry. And there is a famous verse that he tells, Krodi karoti pratamam yada jata manityata datriva janani paschat tada shokasya kah kramaha. The first one to embrace the newborn child is impermanence. When somebody is born, who is it that embraces the newborn child first? Impermanence. Now the word anityata is a feminine word. So there is also one nice choice of words there. Dhatri iva, like a midwife. So just like the midwife, when a baby is born, takes the baby, impermanence is like that. Only later the mother is going to embrace the baby. So if we reflect about this, oh mother, why do you have such grief? In other words, you knew I was going to die the moment I was born. I'm going back to the first one who embraced me. This is how brave Shankacura was. Meanwhile, there was this crown prince of the Vidyadharas, who was a bodhisattva, future Buddha. And this crown prince of the Vidyadharas was about to get married, actually. And so he had a red dress. And it so happened that one needed a red dress to be as the sign of one's being the victim for Garuda. So first he went to the Naga boy and his mother and told them, give me the dress, I want to be the victim myself. And they told him, no way. Now that you've spoken in this way, you're just like our relative. And even the mother of the boy said, it's like you are more my son than my son after you have said this. So there's no way I'm going to allow this. But he took advantage of receiving the clothes for his own marriage, and he went to the place with this red sign. And in the story, Garuda went and actually started eating him alive. And while he was being eaten, at one point Garuda looked at him and saw that he looked happy before, and he still looked perfectly calm, serene, and very happy that he was being eaten alive. And Garuda stopped. And he asked him, the Bodhisattva asked Garuda, why did you stop? There is still blood from my veins, there is still flesh in my body, please eat more. And Garuda was completely shocked. He realized, oops, I have done some mistake. And he asked him, who are you? And then he understood that this is a great person, and he said, what can I do? What can I do to make amends for this? And then he got teachings from the Bodhisattva, who told him, you have to stop eating the nagas. And then everything goes well, because he ends up being revived. A deity appears and revives him, and he really becomes the emperor of the Chakravarti, and everybody is happy. This is how the play finishes. But the point that I wanted to make is that the answer in brief is, for a high-level bodhisattva, even these acts of giving, which to us, they might look like, oh, it's terrible pain. They're not terrible pain, because they realize emptiness. In fact, you can read that also in the Diamond Sutra. I think maybe some of you have. You can check what the Buddha says about is when he was a bodhisattva. Why he had no problems when he was cut to pieces. You can check what they say in the Diamond Sutra. So it has to do with the fact that high bodhisattvas have realized emptiness, and they have this exceptional compassion, and therefore, for them, even that is just happiness. So this is the feature of a bodhisattva path. If one does it step by step in the appropriate manner, it's just a way to increase happiness. So and this happiness comes from knowing that one is going to bring the highest amount of possible happiness to everybody else. So one will naturally start having a very serene mind. And indeed, eventually I want to look at it and tell you more precisely. But for example, it is said that even if one can give rise once, for one moment, to Bodhicitta, from that moment one will not have very strong mental afflictions. One will still have mental afflictions because, of course, one is not liberated, but they will not be that much strong. They will not be overwhelming. They will not become obsessions or last that long. And also one will not usually be born in the lower realms. It can happen, but if it happens, it will not be for a very long time, And the person who has taken the Bodhisattva path and is born in the lower realm, actually the only thing that that person feels when being in the lower realm is compassion towards all the sentient beings who are in that realm. And we find that sometimes, even in the previous lives of Shakyamuni, he was born as a fish, he was born as a rabbit, but a special fish, a special rabbit, very wise fish, very wise rabbit. Sometimes he was born as the small quail, the quail baby. A quail is a type of bird, and he was a vegetarian quail. Yes, that story is that the parents used to bring food, and this food included live animals. So he was a bodhisattva. Even if he was a baby quail, he would not eat it. He would just eat whatever is not live animals. So it means he didn't eat much. So he was the weakest quail of all the baby quails. He was very, very weak. He couldn't even fly. Even when the others could fly, he couldn't fly. He was just there in the nest. But he was a bodhisattva. So once there was a big fire. There was a huge fire in the forest. And this fire started coming closer and closer to the nest, to the extent that all his baby quail's brother and sisters and even his parents had to leave. They could fly away. He couldn't fly. But when the fire was near enough, he could speak words of truth and stop it. Even though he was a very weak baby quail, actually he was not so weak. He just said, if it is true that I never harmed anybody, then this fire must stop. And the fire stopped. So even someone who looks very weak, and even in a time of distress, even when it is difficult, he didn't commit non-virtue. So actually, he had a lot of inner strength. So that's the point of that Jataka. But these are some examples of how actually what to us might look like the opposite of sukha. It's just because we are not yet advanced bodhisattvas, but if we train, then it's not dukkha, it will be sukha. So this is something we can understand, because maybe when we were more stingy, giving to a beggar did not give us any pleasure. But when we develop a little bit of altruism, we can see, oh no, this is actually gives us lots of happiness too. So we can understand that it's a matter of training and changing our mindset. And this is something, according to the Buddhist teachings, that we can bring to the infinite level. In fact, it is said, Dana Paramita, when we say Dana Paramita, it doesn't mean literally that we will be able to feed all the poor people. If that were true, then the Buddha would not be a Buddha, because we see poor people. Dana Paramita is in the mind. So the example that Shantideva gives is in another chapter. If you want to walk through the earth, you're not going to cover all the earth with leather. That would be a huge amount of leather, and it might not work well. All you need is as much leather to cover the soles of your feet, and that's enough. Similarly, the perfection of dana is just a feature of the mind. So it is by training our mind that we can have this incredible dana. And even when it looks like it causes pain, we have to remember those are exceptional beings. And for them, it's just happiness. So that's the meaning of this. So now we can read that. Again, we can repeat it. we can repeat together. Kalpananalpan pravichintayadbhir drishtam munindrairhitameta yatas sukheneva sukham pravruddham utplavayati apramitam janoghan. Okay, I think for today we finish with the Bodhicharyavatara. So we can say the dedication of merit 3 times. This is on the other copies on page 5. We can say it together. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat.